All right, this is a Las Vegas Sun podcast, The Rebel Room. Mike Grimala and I'm Ray Brewer. Talking UNLV athletics. It's been a minute since we've dropped one of these. Welcome to the new year. Feliz Nueve Año, as they say. Obviously, football team played in a bowl game. Yay. Lost a bowl game. Boo. Kept their wide receiver. Yay. Lost their quarterback to Georgia, if that tells you anything. Unbelievable, in my opinion. But today, Mike, I want to start with basketball. San Diego State, UNLV was this Saturday. And I hate to say this, but it could be my fault.
Your fault.
That they lost. That football lost.
You're taking blame.
Well, anytime, like the basketball, the bowl game was like the day after Christmas, right?
Yep.
So I made the kids wear their UNLV shirts, and we made some food, and they just got destroyed. They couldn't stop the pass, right?
Yep.
And then the San Diego State game, the 1:30 CBS, right? I got the Steelers on one TV, right? My Steelers, the Rebels on the other. Nothing to do in the afternoon. It's a perfect time. And they played just great defense on the first possession, right? I mean, as great as defense as they played all year, in my humble opinion.
Uh-huh.
And then the guy from San Diego State banks in a three-pointer. A fortunate bank, correct?
Mm-hmm. And then it stares at the bench as though he intended to do it.
I didn't see that part of it. And right there to my head, I'm like, it's over. It's 131.
Yeah.
Right? The Kansas TCU game went a little long. So it's like it's 140. And I'm like, it's over with. The day's over. It was like a long completion in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
It took me a little longer to get there. I would say probably 3 or 4 minutes into the game, it became apparent that UNLV was not ready for that situation. San Diego State overwhelmed them on the court, off the court. The environment was too much for them. They weren't ready for that kind of intensity. Like San Diego State is the national runners-up. They were in a national championship game, 7 months ago? And their fans are going crazy. They have a team identity. Everyone's bought in. They're playing harder than anyone that UNLV has played this year. And it showed in, 5 minutes into the game, it's 18-3. And that's it. There's no coming back from that. So took me a little bit longer. You were one possession. I was probably 12 possessions.
Yeah. I tweeted. I don't know if you saw me tweet at you.
I did.
Okay. Yeah. I asked you.
You're basically saying that.
Yeah. It's just an omen that came through. And so now we're at a little bit of a crossroads with UNLV. Kevin Kruger, in his third season, has yet to make the tournament. In fact, UNLV hasn't been to the tournament since 2013, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And this team, quite honestly, isn't that good. Well, they might be good. They're not playing good.
Relative to the Mountain West, they are not good. The Mountain West is a really, really good conference. They've got 3 teams in the top 20 this week. They've got 5 teams that are on track to be NCAA tournament teams. So compared to that, UNLV is not good.
But a lot of chances to pick up good wins.
Yes, that's the one thing you can maybe hang your hat on. It's not going to be enough to get an at-large bid. UNLV is not going to dig out of that hole. But you can get some good experience. You can harden yourself by playing against these teams, maybe win a couple of road games, prepare yourself for that Mountain West tournament, and make your run there. So, yeah.
I mean, the Mountain West tournament is still winning a certain amount of days on your home floor. Now, granted, you're not going to have a home field advantage because other universities travel better.
And it's unlikely that they're going to have a bye on that first day. So you're going to be talking about winning 4 games in 4 days.
We're 1 game in. How could it be unlikely?
Because there are some teams that are NCAA teams that are just New Mexico.
Could we assume that every team in the league is going to lose at San Diego State?
Yeah. Okay. So maybe
let's not. Yes, they're bad. Yes, they need to win a lot in a row to be in contention. Something magical needs to happen.
It's okay. Maybe it's too early for me to be closing the door on them finishing in the top 5. But I think it's still more likely than not that they're 6 or below. So whether it's 3 games in 3 days or 4 games in 4 days, the final 3 of those games are going to be against teams that are top 50 in KenPom. Like you're going to have to win the semifinals and the finals against NCAA tournament teams. You're going to have to beat the reigning Final Four team that may be better this year than they were last year. So it's a hard road. So just when you say that question, like, are they good? I'm just comparing them to the rest of the league. Right now, I'm thinking they're not good. That could change. They still have 17 games left. But right now, I don't think they stack up.
Correct. I would agree. But can they get there?
It's a good question.
I mean, they do have players that know how to play basketball, correct?
They should. Their roster is loaded with 50-year seniors. Guys that Kevin Kruger likes to say, so-and-so's he's played 100 games of college basketball. Jalen Hill's played 134 games, whatever. So they've got a few guys like that who have played triple-digit college basketball games. So that's why it was especially concerning to me when they came out at San Diego State and they were not ready for it. Like they were overwhelmed by the atmosphere. Like that's something that you would expect a college basketball player who's been in some difficult road venues. They would know how to handle that, and they wouldn't fall down 18-3. But yeah, so that's why I was concerned. Especially, I don't think they showed their experience.
So I watched the game, and I don't know as much about the team as you do, right?
I wouldn't say that.
No. I've been to one game. You've been to more than one game, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm watching television, and the 5 guys in the black jerseys playing with UNLV on their chest, right?
Yep.
I'm sitting there, and DJ Thomas, I think he played the whole game.
39 minutes, I think.
And he had the ball in his hands a lot.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, who could he pass the ball to that can make a shot and score? Think about it. Who could he pass the ball to that can make a shot and score? And I'm not just talking like a 3-pointer, just anywhere on the court. Like, who's the best scorer they have? I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, they're leading. You just hit on the main problem. Their leading scorer is Luis Rodriguez, who is a bad offensive player. Like, he's not a good offensive player. You pretty much don't want him shooting, probably ever, except maybe in transition. And he's taking 3-pointers and missing. He's driving into 2 and 3 guys and getting stripped for turnovers. He just played a terrible game. And your options after that are guys who have trouble creating any kind of offense. Caleb Boone has been good in the post this year, but he was getting pushed out of position. Like, he was not ready for the physicality of San Diego. So they were pushing him out to the 3-point line every time he tried to post up. They would get ready to throw it in. They would get ready for an entry pass, and by the time they were ready to throw it into him, he's standing right where the passer is. Like, so they.
I watched San Diego State dismantle the same way Fresno.
They're going to do to be fair, they are going to do that to a lot of teams this year.
Now, to be fair, it was 18-3, right?
Yep. And 20-5.
18-3 and 20-5. At one point in the second half, now, mind you, I'd stopped watching. I transitioned strictly to the Steelers game, which they won.
Congratulations.
They're in. They're in the playoffs. Your team isn't. It's okay. We're going to lose to Buffalo, but at least we could watch another game as a family and lose. But did the Rebels not cut the lead to 8 points, Michael?
They cut it to 6 in the second half.
Does that not say anything? I mean, you just got done talking about you don't know who's going to score. They weren't ready for the environment. They were pushed around, yada, 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 all this bad stuff. Mm-hmm. What about the fact that they did shrink it on the road against a team that lost in a national championship game and is ranked to 6 points? Do they not get any credit there?
I'm going to say something that is going to sound very negative right now. I think that's San Diego State. I think that's just what San Diego State is. Like, they are physically dominant. They bust you on defense, but then they go through their own offensive stretches where they don't score, they commit their own turnovers, and they can let a team back into the game. Like, we've seen them struggle to put – who do they play on the road? Some UC team this year where they needed a buzzer beater offensive putback to win. Like, they are going to play some close games because their offense is going to look incapable for long stretches. And I thought that's what happened. Like, UNLV hit a few shots, to close the gap, but I thought that was more about San Diego State hitting one of their offensive lulls, which they're prone to do against anyone, regardless of what UNLV
They beat
did.
Irvine at the buzzer, and they also beat Irvine and UC San Diego by the same score, 63-62.
Yeah, so that's when you play that style, and they don't have an explosive offensive system, so that's going to happen to them. But even when it was 6 points, you could just tell, like, they were never in danger of losing that lead. Like, if they needed to get stops the rest of the game, they were going to get them. But so yes, UNLV, credit for hanging in there, credit for especially DJ Thomas, who I thought was the most impressive player. They really beat him up. They threw a bunch of guys at him, a lot of length. They picked him up the length of the floor. He played 39 minutes. He was dead tired, but he was still going to the rim. He was still making plays. He was hitting some tough shots. He didn't make every shot, but he played a really good, tough college basketball game. I thought he embraced the moment. So, yeah, they did get it to 6. I think that's more about San Diego State than about UNLV. So, very negative take by me, but I think that's minimal credit to UNLV there for that.
So the Chiefs lost to the Raiders on Christmas Day. The Raiders didn't beat the Chiefs, is what you're trying to say.
Every circumstance is different. I think in this circumstance, San Diego State would have let probably – I didn't see anything that UNLV did specifically to get back in the game. I saw San Diego State letting a random opponent back into the game. Yeah. That's just the way I viewed it.
So taking a look at the UNLV schedule, in a few hours tonight, they play New Mexico at home. I don't know if we need to go too far deep into that game because who knows when this is going to get posted, but pretty much a must-win. And then...
You think it's a must-win?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right? And then Saturday night or Saturday afternoon, noon tip, the Aggies of Utah State, ranked 20th nationally, come into town. At the beginning of the year, and maybe the last time we did this podcast, Mike, didn't you have UNLV finishing 27-3?
It was something like that. It was like 20. I think I had them 24-6 or 24-8, something like that.
What's changed?
They're not as good as I thought they were going to be. The only guy who has lived up to expectations is DJ Thomas. Everyone else on the roster has underperformed and been worse than I thought they were going to be. So some of the parts is not as good as we thought they were going to be. And individually, the parts of the parts are also not as good as I thought they were going to be. That's really all there is to it. And then you look at the rest of the Mountain West, better than anyone expected. Like you say they got New Mexico. You consider New Mexico a must-win. They're like 14-1. They're on the fringe of the top 20. They're like they're top 30.
Well, I mean, they can't wait until
and then Utah State's
the 23rd when they play Air Force here to win a game. Right? They're going to have to beat New Mexico, Utah State, Boise, Colorado State. There are opportunities. Today's the 9th. In the next 10 days, they play 2 ranked teams and a team getting votes.
Yes.
So they have an opportunity to have you come back in here to speak positively about them.
If they go 3-1 during that stretch, it's back on. Like the Rebels are rolling. They've got all this momentum. Hey, they're finding their stride. Great.
What's the betting line tonight?
I got to imagine I would guess New Mexico by a couple points.
I would say UNLV by 2. Let's see.
You think?
Who's a better? No, you're right. You know your sports more than me. New Mexico by 2 points. Did you look that up ahead of time?
I did not, but
okay.
They're the road team, but they're the better team, so you figure like 3 or less, I guess.
Yeah, and there'll be nobody at the game.
No home court advantage at all for UNLV.
Completely open sections.
Yeah.
Which I was going to ask you about, your thoughts on Kevin Kruger. Is he coaching for his life?
For his life.
His Rebel life, his UNLV life.
I'll tell you, you read off that schedule that they're going to play, the next 4 games. Those are 3, top, all 4 of those teams could end up in the NCAA tournament. 0-5 is not off the tape. That's something that could happen. And you hope it doesn't happen. But there's a chance that they start the conference season 0-5. At that point, any coach is in jeopardy. Mike Krzyzewski's job is in jeopardy at Duke if he starts the ACC play 0-5. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So If things take if they go even further south here in this early stretch, then yeah, you've got to start thinking about that. But if he wins, like if they go 2-2 in the next 4, I think people will be happy because it'll be a couple of ranked wins. If they win one of them, it's enough to at least stave off people, and you can at least dream on it. But
what's he got to do to keep his job? Because he's got a year left on his deal, right?
To feel good about himself going into the offseason and not be thinking about it, he's got to make the NCAA tournament. I think if they miss the tournament this year, he'll be a little uneasy when the final buzzer sounds, when they're eliminated from the Mountain West tournament. He'll go into that next meeting the next day with the AD thinking like, oh, this could be it. I don't know. So anything less than an NCAA tournament is going to bring up that question, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you like?
The thing I hate about it is I've been following UNLV basketball. Like, literally went to games at the convention center. I get the history of the team, and of course, there's nothing more paramount than winning games and getting to the tournament. And the 10-year drought will be evident tonight against New Mexico when you see the lack of people there. But I'm very aware that there's kind of like 2 family names that are very important in the grand scheme of things. The Tarkanians, statue of the man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Krugers. Okay. Jerry went to 3 Final Fours in 5 years, won a natty, got raced out way too prematurely. Took years for him to get back in good graces with the university, thanks to Lon. Right?
Yep.
Lon came, got $25 million to get the Mendenhall practice facility built.
Yep. That's his building.
Transformed the program. Won the Mountain West 3 times. Went to the Sweet 16, and Kevin was his point guard. Lonnie is going to be pushing his K-State brother, Eric Harper, to keep Kevin. If Harp pulls the trigger, now you've disenfranchised the other Mount Rushmore family, right? The Rices obviously have a bad taste in their mouth for the university and love the university like hell.
Yeah.
But rightfully, Dave got screwed.
Handled poorly.
He should have been able to finish out the season, but they were afraid he would have won. Done. Now you're going to get rid of Kevin, and rightfully so. He had 3 years, and the team is going to be in the bottom half of the Mountain West if your projections are right. So now nobody's going to the games. You're not winning. You're in the bottom half of the league, and the only thing you got going for you is the history.
Yeah. How much does that buy Kevin Kruger? If everything goes wrong, how much does that history buy? Does it buy him 1 more year? Like, can they get him 1 more? Because, I mean,
I don't know.
Talk about Eric Harper. He just hired a football coach and had immediate success in year 1. So he just hit a home run. He's feeling good about himself. Now he's walking to the plate again. And are you going to give him the take sign, or you want him to like swing away? He probably feels like the next basketball coach I hire is going to have us in the NCAA tournament in the first year because I know what I'm doing. Like, and I can do it and I can turn it around.
Yeah, but I think in 2 things. There's no doubting Odom's ability to organize and coach. He was the Mountain West Coach of the Year, and for good reason, because that league has a lot of coaches that are new to being a head coach. Right, so we brought in an experienced guy who was a head coach and who navigated a not as strong as usual Mountain West and got enough wins, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii and Reno were complete garbage, right? San Jose, they lost 3 games to close out the season.
Yep.
Okay, San Jose, not even close.
Boise.
Not even close.
And then the bowl game.
Defense had a lot of holes, even though they got 2 guys from Arkansas that I think could play in the secondary. I'm just saying, if Kevin Kruger was coaching, Kevin Kruger is in a Mountain West that reminds me of what Bobby Houck had to play in.
It's a powerhouse conference.
It's a great league right now.
It's basically a power conference for basketball.
And listen, Odom struck at the right time. Okay, portal's open. He's able to get developed players to come in and get the team over the top, right? He's got the complex to train in, best in the league. He's got Allegiant Stadium, best in the league. He's the highest paid coach in the Mountain West. Bam, 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 bam. Perfect storm. This program, football, is in the best position it's ever been to be a winner, and he came in and did it. Crappy league, great facilities, historic investment, right? Home run. No doubt about it. I think it's two different situations. Okay, now, if Kevin was a complete jerk like Marcus Aurora was,
sure,
there'd be no question he'd be gone. But he's a good guy. Everybody seems to like him.
He puts the work in.
He makes no money. He's the low. He only makes his salary's very friendly.
That was going to be the one thing I brought up when you mentioned everything that Odom had going for him and how they were able to turn it around. Kevin Kruger is not the highest paid coach in the Mountain West. I would have to look at the list, but I would think he's probably in the middle of the pack or lower. His contract is not really anything that would be hard to get out of. So if you're saying, well, the formula for football was to hire an experienced coach who had done it in the SEC and had coached football at college football at the highest level and pay him accordingly, would that formula work for basketball? Could you get a basketball coach who has been in the ACC and coached at, Miami or NC State or something like that and been in the tournament before?
I mean, bring him to the mountain. But who are you going to get?
I'm just speaking off the cuff. I'm just throwing out random.
Are you going to get
schools.
Danny Manning?
I don't know, but
it was a disaster.
But someone
in the ACC,
but someone who has competed at that level and who's experienced and say, okay, we're going to pay you to come in and be the highest paid coach in the Mountain West, and could that work? So
yeah, the one. I mean, I don't know what UNLV's financial situation is. I know that being at Allegiant has expanded their budget, right? And my problem with saying, okay, I'm going to go buy the best car on the lot, right? If that guy craps the bed, now you're stuck. Say the guy's a complete, you bring a person in, say it's a it's a $2 million a year deal. Is that fair?
Sure.
Is that too high?
I'm trying to think. I don't know his contract off the top. I think he was making less than $500,000. Kruger.
Kevin Kruger's making $785. I just
really okay.
Let me just pull it up. I was looking at your story.
So I remember when he was hired.
He's making $775,
which was I think in Otzelberger I think was 1.25 or something around that.
He's on a 5-year, $3.85 million contract. It's a 37% decrease from Otzelberger.
Yeah, and Otzelberger was a guy who was experienced multiple NCAA tournaments, and he came in, and I thought he was doing a good job.
I hated the way he recruited.
He did have peculiarities recruiting. He recruited some guys who were fringe athletes. But then you see he gets to his next job, and it's going great. So he could have done that at UNLV. I think he would have. He was a good coach on the floor, X's and O's and stuff. So,
is Kevin not a good coach, X and O's? Or, he brought in Jalen Hill, ACL out for the injury, right? ACL injury against San Diego State, out for the year. Brought in the Boone brothers. One of them can't play until 9 games into the season, right?
Yep.
Maybe made a bad evaluation on a few other players. And now it all adds up.
This is such a negative podcast for me. If you want me to levy one criticism at Kevin Kruger as a coach, it would be that we just talked about this. Every time I ask him, what's your offensive philosophy? Because he gets them to play defense. Their defense is good enough to win most nights. They have good defenders. Their offense has been, up and down for a couple years. That's usually why they lose. You say, what's the offensive philosophy? What are you trying to do? What kind of player, et cetera? And he always says, the best shot that we want to create is an open catch and shoot 3-pointer. We want to drive and kick, move the ball, find a shooter who's got his feet set, uncontested, shoot a 3. That's our offense. And he does not recruit shooters. Everybody they bring in is a bad shooter. They're like we talked about Luis Rodriguez. He's under 30% for his career, and he's got a green light. He takes more threes than anyone. Like Jalen Hill comes in. Good player, contribute in a lot of ways. But if he's going to start and play 32 minutes a night for you, that's another guy he can't shoot. Caleb Boone has attempted like 2 threes in his entire career. Like there's 3 starters in your lineup right there who cannot shoot a lick at all, who you don't ever want to shoot. So that would be my one criticism of him is like, if that's your offensive philosophy, why are you not recruiting to that? And that's the reason why they've lost the last couple of years and have not lived up to expectations. We saw them against Creighton when they made 3-pointers. You can win those games, but they just don't make enough because he doesn't recruit good shooters. That would be my one criticism. I do like his defensive system. I like that he recruits size. They're usually pretty big. He gets them to buy in. I think they play hard. That wasn't always the case under previous coaches.
He's got a few players that are just like...
And I do think he's recruit. Like he landed DJ Thomas. They've got good guys out of the portal. There's good NIL. Like they're doing good on all those fronts. My big criticism is I don't think they're recruiting. Like they're not evaluating the right fits and the right type of players for that system.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the guys that you got out of the portal to be long-term guys. Jackie Johnson, Justin Watson.
Justin Webster. Ice Cottrell. How's that gone for you? Cottrell is not a rotational player, in my opinion.
I agree. Now, I get it. I understand when you make a basketball roster, you're not recruiting 5 starters.
Yes.
You've got to have some Jimmies and Joes lined up. And for a guy who could play 10 or 12 minutes a game, maybe that's Cottrell. You know, Jackie, the one thing he can do is he occasionally gets hot and he can make some shots.
Yep.
Don't know if he brings much else to the table.
He's got a much better motor this year than last year. He's playing really hard defensively. Webster is a guy who had a really good shooting year last year. He's been spotty this year. And then Keelan Boone but he's not a long-term guy. He's a 1-year guy.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be a good shooter. We haven't seen that yet. So it just hasn't come together. Like offensively, we saw them in that St. Mary's game was the rock bottom where they had 3 field goals in the first half.
But if they could have won that game, they were right there. They could have won that game.
They were. They could have won several games that they lost. It just hasn't come together, and I don't know how much of that you want to place on coaching, how much you want to place on the players themselves, because these are players who are getting paid. Like these are professional athletes at this point.
How many of them are getting paid?
All the big guys they brought, the guys they got from the portal this year are getting NIL. DJ Thomas is getting 6 figures in NIL. Jalen Hill, I believe, is 6 figures.
He's done.
He's done for the year.
Probably done for next year too.
So that's a lot of money. That's now not being, that's just a tough break. I can't blame anyone for that. But yeah, they're paid. It's just been that kind of year. Can they flip a switch and start making these shots? I don't know. A lot of these guys don't have a good history of making shots. But that's my opinion.
Okay, let me ask you this: do they like each other? Are they playing hard?
Yes, they are playing hard.
That to me, that's a good start.
They got good vibes.
So listen, they could go in. They could beat New Mexico and Utah State at home. Rosters where they have better in Jimmys and Joes, arguably. Correct?
Yeah.
Then going to Boise, which is a little down this year. Beat Boise, and now all of a sudden you're feeling good about yourself. You got to win 3.
That's a tough path. If they can do that, they'll have a lot of believers. If they do that, you've pretty much proven that you can get to the Mountain West final. Those are the teams you'll have to beat in the tournament to get to the final. So if you do that,
also
you give everyone reason to hope.
Your best player's an 18-year-old kid who has played 12 college basketball games.
He's really good.
He's only going to get better game by game. And the one thing, like the Creighton game, I noted, before the Creighton game, he was like the prototypical point guard. Wanting to get others involved, great distributor, facilitator of the offense. Arguably needed to be a little more selfish.
Yeah.
He started shooting against Creighton, and look at the result. And so he needs to be like LeBron, literally. everything goes through him. If he wants to shoot it, he'll shoot it. If he wants to pass it, he'll pass it. In my opinion.
I think you're...
And I don't know anything about basketball.
I think you probably have to wait for next year to see him really impose his will on games that way. Like, you'll see it this year as a freshman. Like, he's really good. He's going to be the best player on the floor a lot of nights, and he's going to play like it. To be the kind of guy who's just going to carry you to wins night after night in a LeBron James-style role, you're probably going to have to wait one more year of experience for him. Now, the question is, like... Is he going to be at UNLV for next year?
That's the problem with the portal is every year, every player is a free agent. And to Kevin's credit, he sensed that ahead of time. And he's like, why am I going to take a guy straight out of high school when I could just go get a fourth or a fifth year guy or get a guy like Jackie Johnson who's great at Duquesne and have him for 3 years?
Yeah, I would lean more towards the latter. Like, if you can get a young guy, a freshman or a sophomore, come with 3 years of eligibility left out of the portal, that's the best case because they burn their one-time transfer, and that kind of locks them in until they graduate as a grad transfer. So Shane Noel falls into that category too. He transferred with 3 years left. So those kind of guys.
Non-factor to me.
But DJ Thomas he's the kind of guy you got to worry about all the time because you recruit a 5-star out of high school and your team underperforms, he's going to have every team in the top 25 making him an offer in the offseason. Like, hey, enter the portal, we got you $500,000 waiting to come, or whatever the offer is. So
and you just can't ask anybody to turn that money down.
Especially, it's one thing when Jaden Mayava is like, he's coming off a good team and you're losing him. DJ Thomas, he's coming off a team that's underperforming. So if he wants to play in the NCAA tournament and he wants to experience success as a college basketball player, whether he's here for 1 more year or 2 more years, those offers are going to probably look enticing. So then maybe that factors into the Kevin Kruger decision. Like, can he keep DJ Thomas committed? And maybe that makes a difference in whether he gets another year. So it's a lot of factors.
I mean, at this hour, DJ Thomas is going to be making more than Kevin Kruger.
I'm sure they're well, I'd have to look it up, but it doesn't seem that far-fetched.
I mean, I'm sure the quarterback at USC, I can't remember, Caleb Williams.
Yeah. He was like, almost $2 million? He's
probably making more than the quarterback's coach at USC.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I'm thinking, I heard a number for DJ Thomas that I trust, that I believe. I don't know if you want me to say it.
No.
Like, I'm not really, reporting it, but I have a number on pretty good account that it puts him up there. Like, he's making a lot of money here, but he could get more elsewhere.
Sure.
So, that's tough. What do you think about Jaden Mayava leaving to go to Georgia to be a backup?
I find that interesting. Even when the Rebels were rolling with him, Mike, I still wasn't sold on him being the long-term guy. Covered him in high school. He fit our system really well. Is Brumfield just done? I mean, I thought I love his leadership. He gets rid of the ball quick. He's a good runner. I know he's injury prone, obviously.
That's it. That's the main. Like, you can't really at this point if you go into the season with Brumfield as your number one guy, you're basically asking for it. Like, you're asking for your season to be ruined because he has not shown that. Not only is he going to get injured, he can't really go more than 2 or 3 games without getting injured. So it's not like it happens fast. Like, every time he gets a chance to play, he only lasts a couple games before he gets hurt. So at some point, if you're building your team around him, you're basically asking for the season to get ruined when he goes down. So,
did they get a transfer portal?
Yes, they did. Haj Malik Williams, I believe, the quarterback from Campbell, who was like 20-something touchdowns passing last year, looks to be a good runner. I don't know much about him. I haven't looked into it yet. But yes, they do have a commitment and he's got 1 year of eligibility remaining, I believe. So that looks to be the leader in the clubhouse as your starting quarterback next year, unless they sign someone else or unless this freshman comes in and beats him out or something like that. But yeah, Mayava took the money to basically leave a start. He was the starting quarterback on a Mountain West championship game contender. And he took the money to go and not play at Georgia for 2 years, which is, to me, that's got to be really scary for UNLV and any group of 5 team.
But it means that I understand it, though, because let's say the kid's not going to the NFL, in my opinion.
No.
Okay. Let's say he got $300 a year from Georgia.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yeah, let's throw it around for that. I was assuming 6 figures, so let's say 300,000.
Okay, so that's 600 for 2 years. After taxes, it's like 410, 420. That's probably he's going to have to need that for his whole life. Worst case scenario, he's got some stacks loaded up in the bank, right?
Yeah, you can buy a house.
Best case scenario, he actually gets on the field at Georgia. Somebody gets hurt. And at Georgia, you don't have to win games.
You don't have to carry the team.
You just have to distribute the ball to 8 5-star receivers.
Just execute the plan with all your talent advantage.
Hand the ball off, blah, blah, blah.
Like, if he got in there, I'm sure they would win 11 games and go 11-1 next year, and they would be great. It seemed from maybe I'm a little wide-eyed and naive about college football, but it just seems kind of crass when, yes, the money is good. It's probably maybe not life-changing money, but it's a good deal for him. But for a guy who's not going to play in the NFL, you're basically buying the rest of his college career. Like, he's only got 3 years to play, and you're basically buying 2 of them and saying you're not going to play. Like, but we're going to give you money to not play. But it's like you're asking him to choose money over playing the sport that he loves, that just kind of sucks to me. And I'm sure Jaden Mayava doesn't think, oh, I'm going to sit for the next 2 years and cook a check. He probably thinks, oh, I'm going to beat out the returning starter Carson Beck next year, and I'm going to be the man. So I'm not saying it's like he made that decision, but from Georgia's point of view, they're like, okay, we have the money to burn. Let's just take this guy and sit him. Let's put him in a refrigerator for 2 years. Just why not? Just so he's on our depth chart.
And then when Beck's done in 2 years, then they'll go in the portal and they'll find another player.
They've got 2 guys on the roster now who are 4-star recruits that he's going to have to beat out to be the backup. And then when Beck is gone after next year or 2 years from now, in the meantime, they're going to recruit other 5-star guys. They're going to be other portal targets. So it's like, he's going to get churned up in that. He might never play. If you ask me to bet on what scenario is the most likely, I would say Jaden Mayava goes. He's on the bench for 2 years. He collects his checks. He graduates. And then he grad transfers somewhere as a 5th-year senior and plays 1 more year of college football. And
at San Jose State.
Yeah, he probably drops down a level or finds some other Power 5 school or whatever.
Watch, he wins the Heisman.
So he's good. I know you have your doubts, and I know other people have had he did throw some bad interceptions down the stretch, but I liked him. I thought he was really good. I thought he would have a great year. I thought he could have been poised for Mountain West Player of the Year next year. First team all-conference quarterback preseason. I thought he was poised for a monster year.
10 interceptions.
But
10 interceptions.
We might not see him again until 2026 as a grad transfer, dropping down to play somewhere. But he'll have that money in the bank. So to me, that's a little crass for college football. But that's the way it is now. And the UNLV's got to find a way to deal with it.
But eventually, as we go on, probably our longest podcast of the year, eventually they're going to regulate this.
That's what people say, but the NCAA does not have a history of moving quickly on things like this.
Yeah.
So that regulation could be 10 years away.
I mean, it's just perfect timing because until 2 years ago, athletes couldn't legally be paid.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then athletes that signed somewhere were basically stuck. If you wanted to move, you had to sit out a year.
You had to sit out a year.
Chase Stanback, for example, BDJ, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Now you go wherever you want. And not only that, people are bidding for your services. I know the lineman from San Jose, Carmona, went to Las Vegas High School, right? His dad used to be the Shap coach, Shap grad. He signed with Arkansas in the portal. right? I follow the kid on social media. Moved into his house last weekend. Just got to Arkansas. Dude, nicest house I've ever seen in my life. I mean, think about that. Like, UNLV, not only do they have small NIL opportunities, you're living at the degree over there on Maryland.
And they well deserved. I don't have anything against college athletes getting paid. Like they're pros now. Like you're a professional athlete now. Go get paid. Take everything that comes with that. It just the fact that they're like Mayava definitely take the money. I would take the money. It's just the fact that they're paying him to not play. In my that's how it looks. And then so for UNLV. It's a good problem to have because it means you're good and you have good players that other programs want. But that's something you're going to have to deal with going forward. Like the NILs, they're going to have to find a way to step up their NIL package. You've at least got to be competitive.
But I guarantee you kids are saying, or kids as handlers are saying, listen, you're an SEC type of DB. You didn't get recruited because, we couldn't afford for you to go to Gorman. Or you were stuck at this public school in Fresno. Go here, go ball out for a year, 2 years. You'll go on the portal, and you'll get paid, and you'll be in the SEC. The other thing, there's a ton of kids that go in the portal, and guess what?
There's no home for them.
They never, and then they give away their scholarship.
I talked to someone who's got their hand in NIL pretty significantly just this weekend, and they told me that they've got lower division schools like lower conference schools that are now recruiting kids out of high school by saying, come play with us. We'll give you playing time. And then some other school will see you and you can transfer and get an NIL package.
Sure.
Like that. So you're even recruiting for this next school that's going to take this kid, which is crazy. Yeah. But I can see it happening.
I mean, I saw it at Adams State, right, which is a D2 school in Colorado.
Yeah.
Jarrell Harrison, my guy, Palo Verde legend. Played at Missouri with Odom was his coach. Mm-hmm. And he had a kid that went from Adams State to Purdue.
Yeah.
Bryce Hampton. And he advocated for the kid, helped him get in there, sold him to other schools.
That's what you're seeing. I'm told that's happening already. And even kids out of high school, like, hey, come play for us for a year or two. We'll give you all the snaps. We'll give you a lot of tape. And some D1 school will pay you.
Yeah. Who was the receiver at Pitt that was like the Blitnikoff winner? And then he transferred to USC, played for the Vikings.
Addison.
Right?
Yeah.
Thinking best receiver in the nation at Pitt, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got everything going for you. You got one more year left. Goes to SC. So, anyways, this is a Las Vegas Sun podcast, The Rebel Room for Michael. This is Ray. Thank you for listening to us babble about everything UNLV sports.